Okay, this is TalkingSoup.com by Douglas Quill. My visit to the Scientology Center. I watched HBO's documentary Going Clear the other day and have since developed a strange fixation with the religion, otherwise known as Scientology. My interests do not lie in the spiritual self-help virtues promoted by this organization, nor in joining Scientology itself, but rather in the morbid, potentially dangerous aspects involved when conjoining what this documentary characterizes as a cult. I entered the celebrity headquarters yesterday at around 2 p.m. The building itself is an impressive structure. If it weren't for the massive plaques plastered on the granite facade, it could quite easily be mistaken for a five-star hotel. The hallways are outfitted with elegant oriental runners, ornate chandeliers, and vintage wallpaper. Even in spite of the upscale architecture, I felt an unsettling presence come over me, as though I was being watched closely. I could feel its associates out of my peripherals, sizing me up as though I was fresh meat. I was greeted by what looked to be a butler, a mid-40s, gaunt-looking, underweight, who possessed this disquieting, robotic demeanor. He grinned at me somewhat sinisterly and said in an overzealous tone, "Welcome to the Celebrity Center, sir. Would you like a tour?" I have to question, was he sinister? I accepted the offer. The man told me to wait here and proceeded up the staircase. Not being able to contain myself, I began exploring. There were shrines of L. Ron Hubbard's book, Dianetics, colossal posters promoting their version of the 10 to 20-something commandments, and a footpath that eventually led me to a small tabletop, upon which Hubbard's e-meter sat, a device that I will otherwise refer to as the tin cans. I picked up the cans and began pressing buttons, spinning knobs, listening to see if I could hear the ocean, all of which went unappreciated by the tour guide, who miraculously appeared behind me out of left field. Without speaking a word, she yanked the tin cans from my hands and asked me to follow her. I was led into a common room with a large flat-screen TV. There was another man present promoting Dianetics, to who looked to be two new visitors to the Celebrity Center. This is something to look into. She immediately asked them to leave. She handed me a small spreadsheet that asked for all my personal information and my interests in Scientology. I took the sheet, filled out a bunch of phony information, stating that I have never heard of Scientology before in my life, that I was fascinated by the building and wandered in. She put on an introductory film for me to view. As the film began to play, I noticed that she had plopped down at a computer station behind me and was plugging all my information into the system. She's getting her stats up. The film continued, showcasing testimonials about how Scientology saved their lives. I wasn't really paying attention to the video. My primary focus was on the guide and their computer database. When the film wrapped, she let me down a series of hallways, paying homage to Hubbard and his great achievements over the years. You know, fat, black tooth, convicted felon, drug addict, L. Ron Hubbard. I took the lightweight cans in my hand. They felt like some cheap Cracker Jack toy for toddlers. I smirked at her. "You mean to tell me these are going to define all my life's problems?" She ignored my sarcastic remark and asked me to think about a life event that was troublesome and traumatic. Trauma-based mind control, anybody? I thought about my dog, Blue, chasing squirrels. The needle pulsed. "That right there. What were you thinking about?" I told her I was recalling the times in high school, getting bullied in lunchrooms and beaten up at school. She asked me to dig deeper. I thought about blue humping. I thought about blue humping my neighbor's dogs, along with any female I have ever invited to my house. The needle pulsed violently. That right there, what was that? I told her about the times I was sexually abused as a child and how difficult my life has become. She took the cans and asked me to come with her. She led me into a small 8x8 cube-like room, outfitted with 2 chairs and a coffee table. Hey, isn't Celebrity Center right across from La Poubelle? Huh. Just an observation. Another woman entered the room to offer me coffee. Just cream, I said. She left. There I sat across from the tour guide, in solitude, confined by the daunting walls of a room that resembled an asylum holding cell. She looked at me as though I was some poor troubled soul, easy for the plucking. She handed me a few dopey pamphlets and explained their educational courses to enlightenment, telling me that by becoming one of them and following this 20-step program, I could rid myself of the demonic entities unnaturally present in my being, and therefore achieve the state of clear. And the first step was to sign up for these 3 introductory level courses for a nominal fee of $500. I sat in silence for several moments, put my finger to forehead as though I was pondering deep thoughts. After several moments, I spoke. You mean to tell me that I give you money and you make my problems go away? She beat around the bush for several moments and formulated some half-assed analogy that basically stated exactly that. Okay, I said, followed by another long pause. I could almost see the sweat dripping down her temples. Was it stats day? Well, I'm going to have to take a day or two to think about this. She immediately blurted out, think about what? You have nothing to think about until you take the courses. And continued with some nonsensical banter about why we needed to get me paid so I can be on my way to enlightenment. Imagine if this happened in sales, like, can't they get in trouble for that? If it's technically sales? You know, religion under the guise of sales. This continued for at least another 30 minutes. I could feel her frustration growing due to my unwillingness to cough up the money. You have heard something about us, haven't you? She asked in an accusatory tone. I could almost cut the tension with a knife. The woman from before entered with the coffee, handed it to me and left. I took a long haul from the cup. It was lukewarm, but I gave the indication that this is a damn good cup of coffee. I smiled and kicked my legs up on the coffee table. I could tell she was eagerly awaiting my response. As a matter of fact, I have heard something about you guys. She shifted. Shifted uncomfortably in her chair and began scratching her neck, fidgeting left and right. I sensed that this was the case. That's fine. I want you to tell me everything you know. Everything. I took another long sip from the cup, smacked my chops and said, well, as a matter of fact, I heard that you guys are a cult. Her eyes widened. I heard that you guys are a big financial shakedown and that you try and tap into people's darkest secrets and use this information to blackmail people if they try to leave. There was a long silence. Isn't that what happens to a lot of politicians? Must be a coincidence. She forced out this maniacal, ear-piercing laughter. What? Don't be ridiculous, she cackled. Oh, yes, I replied. I should also mention that I have seen the HBO documentary Going Clear. Was it? She then proceeded down this 30-minute rant about how everything in the documentary was false, even though she admitted to not having seen it, and concluded by forcefully encouraging that I pay her the money and take the courses to find out for myself. After over an hour of being confined to this small room, imagine children being in this room, you guys. Guess FBI and Department of Justice, they're fine with children being locked up in 8x8 rooms, not being allowed to leave. Ah, wait, isn't that false imprisonment? I digress. I began to feel truly uncomfortable and said I needed to be on my way, that I had my dog waiting in the car and I needed to check up on him. She stood up and said, I'll walk you to your car and direct you to our private parking lot. where you can keep him in the shade. I would also say that was not a very wise idea to do. It was at this point that I truly realized these people are off their fucking rocker and will do anything to turn a buck. Annoyed yet intrigued by her desperation, I agreed. She followed me out to my car and directed me to the parking lot. I drove around the back and saw her anxiously awaiting me at the entrance of the parking lot. It was when I pulled up to the driveway that she caught a glimpse of my shitbox car. It took her a minute to recognize me, as though she was expecting a Porsche or Lamborghini. I watched her heart sink in thinking that I was some high roller based on my blazer and shoes. Sorry to disappoint you, lady, I thought to myself with a magnificent shit-eating grin on my face. I rattled into the parking spot. I could taste her embarrassment. She had the VIP section blocked off for me and everything. It was truly a hilarious sight. She led me around the facilities, introducing me to Jimmy and Johnny and who knows what, all of whom possessed a very similar robotic demeanor to the butler. The meet and greet ultimately ended in a bookstore displaying the publications of L. Ron Hubbard's work of bullshit, available to guys like me for a pretty penny. I kindly turned down their offer, shook their hands, and thanked them for their time. I had chills running through my body walking back to my car. It was mind-boggling to even begin to imagine such an amazingly brilliant and sinister con job this whole operation is. And perhaps all religions for that matter. I walk into a joint and offer up a bag of fallacious personal defects, and they tell me that if I give them all my money, they will make my problems go away, and boy, were they relentless in doing that. Sound like any other self-help gurus? I'm just saying. For those of you still with me, I strongly encourage you to view the HBO documentary Going Clear, and if you dare, pay a visit to Scientology celebrity headquarters, Asylum, so you can formulate your own decision. My conclusions are as follows. Talk about a colossal crock of shit. I'm just glad I gave them a phony email address. And that was Douglas Quill. I will leave a link in the description box. Like and subscribe if you choose. Otherwise, have an amazing day or night wherever you are. Peace.